Welcome to Spirit Journey Collective. I'm your host, Sarah Ty. Get ready for compelling conversations with guests of all walks of life who believe they have found their purpose. Together, we will uncover unique backstories, hearing the raw experiences that led them to the work they are doing today. Let's expand our minds together with the captivating stories and inspiration that awaits. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Spirit Journey Collective. I have a really great guest today. Her name is Jenn Fredericks. She's a Prosilience coach, which for those of you listening might wonder what that is. And I can't wait to dive in because it's actually a really cool combination of things that she does. So thank you so much for being here today, Jenn.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And so why don't you share a little bit more about what you do, what a Prosilience coach is, and everything you offer?
Sure. Well, I started my journey as a life coach about 7 years ago, general life coaching, personal, professional development. And you'll hear some of why I became interested in resilience as we continue speaking. But people would ask me, how are you so resilient? And I didn't know. And so I was able to start researching different themes of resilience and came across Prosilience, which is work that was developed by Linda Hoops, who is a organizational psychologist. And Prosilience is proactive resilience put together. And I really loved this concept. I loved the framework. I actually saw myself embodying this framework since the time I was 15, and I didn't know how to put it into words. And I read this book and connected with Linda. And I was like, oh my gosh, you've put language to my experience. And now I want to take that and use it and help others. And my passion is guiding patients and caregivers to build their proactive resilience.
I love that so much. I didn't even know that that was even a real word, being Prosilience, but I think that that's something that I naturally have because I'm one of those people who I've been told before that like my superpower is that if something doesn't work, I just figure out another way. And it's just something that I have a hard time understanding why not everyone thinks that way. But I know a lot of people don't. And, getting them motivated to do things, even if it's for their best selves, that could be really hard. And so that's so funny. I never knew that that was a actual word, but yeah,
Yeah.
and so as a coach, you said you work specifically with caregivers.
Yes, as I said, I love general life coaching and development work, and also know that my pain has met my passion. And so now I know my purpose, and that is guiding patients with any type of diagnosis. But specifically, I have a lot of experience with a life-threatening chronic illness. And then also I'm a caregiver for someone with a very difficult diagnosis. And so being able to use the 4 building blocks of resilience within this Prosilience framework has really helped buoy me and let me see how I can do this sustainably, because I've actually been managing my chronic illness for 3 decades and my daughters for the past 8. And so this makes it more easeful in a life that doesn't feel or look quite easy. And it's really important to me that, while I'm here working to heal myself and support my daughter as she heals, that we actually truly live as we're doing that. Because if we don't, why else are we doing it?
Yeah, and that particular niche, I think, is one that needs to be more of, because there are a ton of empowerment coaches and, self-esteem coaches and business. I mean, there's coaches for everything, right?
Right.
But I don't feel like there's enough in the field of wellness that's more specific to what you're speaking to.
Mhm.
And so I think that that's beautiful. And the fact that you're taking something that you're already learning on your own in your own life. And I listened to a previous podcast that you shared with me. And so I kind of already know a little bit of your backstory, which is incredible, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like, just listening to your story, which I definitely want to get into it and have the listeners hear it too. But as a listener, when I heard your story before, it really just felt like, wow, you really are doing what you're supposed to be doing here. Like everything that lined up for you, it feels like you're here to take your story and help someone else who could be in a difficult situation.
but it really just, it's like you're taking, like I said, your pain point and you're making it easier for someone else.
I really
Beautiful.
hope to model what's possible in a
Yeah.
very dire circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, like I said, hearing your story before, I feel like you absolutely do. But why don't we, so listeners are probably now on the edge of their seat, like, what are they talking about? Why don't you share a little bit of your backstory and how you, not just, how you became a coach, but, what led you here?
Sure. Well, and it's so funny because, people say this to me and I take it and I'm honored to hear that. And I'm humbled. And I'm also kind of like, I don't know, it's just kind of normal for me. This has been normal life for so long, but, grew up having a wonderful childhood and still did after I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease when I was about 13 or 14 and ended up needing a kidney transplant. So fortunate that my dad was a great match and he just so willing and selfless and donated that kidney to me. That lasted 18 years. So I was able to experience all of the things that you're supposed to experience when you're a teenager and going through young adulthood because of this second gift of life. And my parents always said to me, are you okay? Like, you make this so easy on us. Are you doing okay? And it was just one of those things that, like you said, you just kind of are a person who figures it out. And as I talk a little bit more in a few minutes about prosilience and the building blocks of prosilience, like that's one of the strategies of life is there are 3 ways that you can come up upon a challenge and handle it. And that was sort of always how I've been, is like, accept this is what's happening, not in a complacent way, but just as this is reality. And what do I want to do with it? So I went through all of the things, graduated high school, went to college, met my future husband, got married, bought a house. We adopted a beautiful daughter. And when she was about 4, my kidney was like, I'm tired. I've supported you for a long time and did a very great job in it, and was able to accept another kidney from actually my husband's fraternal twin brother. So he was a match and donated to me in 2012, which was amazing. And it's like, you don't have enough words to thank people who do that for you. And around 2015 then, so I was all healing up 3 years past the date, and my daughter was having some interesting symptoms with headaches and such, and ended up being diagnosed with a low-grade brain tumor when she was 7. And that, I think, was really part of the impetus of me seeking out something to support myself more. It's easier when it's you, when it's someone that you love. And like with a child, it's your heart, like walking outside of your body, right? Like there were things going on that I didn't quite know how to manage mentally and emotionally. And at the same time, like a year later, I was laid off from my corporate marketing career I had been in for 16 years. And I flippantly said, well, someone told me maybe once I'd be a good life coach, so I'll look into that. And so I did. I started a training about 4 months later for my career, and it actually ended up saving me, changing the dynamic of my house, changing my outward experience and inward experience with the world. And even though I've been resilient for as long as I can remember, I couldn't put words to it. And I kind of hit that bottom. They hear you hit the bottom and then you bounce back with resilience, which is, one way to look at it. I did that after about a year after my daughter's diagnosis, and was really looking for extra support in how to be well myself so I could support her. And that's how I ended up in life coaching. And beyond that, when I would share my story, coworkers, clients would always ask, how are you so resilient? And like I said, I didn't know I had a choice. I didn't know what that meant. And so I started researching resilience, compassion fatigue as it came to, healthcare workers, and then started to look more at, not so much the fatigue part, but the compassion resilience piece, and then ran across Linda Hoop's work with Prosilience. And I was like I said, she just described what I do. And I'm so happy because I couldn't put it into words and now I can.
Yeah, just hearing the story again, it's not any less incredible than it was the first time.
It's so funny to hear that because, like I said, it just is normal.
Yeah, to you, it's just life. It's just your story, you know.
Yeah.
And I know you've shared it many, many, many times, but I think that it just puts in perspective. I mean, many people have been in your shoes and handle it completely differently. And not to say it's wrong by any means, but
Correct.
you really just. I love how you said that you just accepted it for what it was, and then you made steps on how to move forward. And I mean, I get it because that's kind of how I am. I see things that way as well, but it's not easy for a lot of other people to see it that way. In my work, I am a tarot reader / spiritual advisor. That's my business. And one of the cards that would describe what you just said perfectly is the justice card. When the card comes up, you're getting feelings of like deep unfairness. This is not fair. I shouldn't be dealing with this. There should be something, you know, like if it's done to you, then there's a sense of injustice that comes with it. Like why, or, you know, they walk around, I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with. But the whole invitation around the justice card is acceptance, because otherwise you get stuck stewing in it and it keeps you stagnant and there's nowhere to go. But if you're able to accept it for what it is, not condone it, because, you know, especially if it was something that was put upon you by someone else, we're not saying it was okay or is okay. We're saying that it is what it is. And if you're able to accept that, then there's a way to move forward. And you said that you didn't know there was another way, and you just made a choice to do the next best thing. And that's empowerment right there. That's when you're putting yourself in the driver's seat and you're saying, I can't change my situation, like what's being handed to me, but I can change how I'm going to deal with it and how I'm going to handle it. And I think that is such a powerful place to be. And your story specifically shows what that looks like when you are able to be in the driver's seat of your life, despite some of the things that are handed to you that are out of your control. And another thing that really stuck with me too is, I mean, if you think about, you said, you know, when you adopted your daughter, obviously you had no idea that she was going to be diagnosed with a brain tumor when she was older, but how perfect that she was the one that was given to you, because you're in the perfect place to be that person for her when another parent may not have been able to be as equipped with dealing with it and helping her thrive through it. So yeah, your story, God, I'm getting emotional. Your story, it's powerful. It's beautiful. And it's just kind of proof that you're right where you're supposed to be. And, you know, another thing that you keep saying is it's just natural. It just comes to me. And it's because you're living in your superpower and in your gifts. And that's how you know you are, is when it's just, you don't have to try. It's just there. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate, you know, you saying that about our adoption too, because that's the way we think of it. You know, she was born in a more rural area, and we live in a suburb, which is 8 minutes from our state's children's hospital. So we do talk about that, you know, that the universe, God, life source, however you look at it, knew that our energies and our spirits were supposed to be together. I couldn't carry a child because of my health condition. And that energy, that one that knows more than we do as humans, found a way to connect us. And, you know, we've talked about that since she was little. I mean, it meant even more when we were on, you know, the floor at the children's hospital, and I saw the parents coming in with their recently diagnosed kiddos who understandably looked like deer in the headlights. And thankfully, when my daughter was diagnosed, of course, we had those moments. Like, we're human. And my husband and I had also experienced, you know, my last transplant together. And so we were comfortable in the medical setting. Like, honestly, this is so weird. I can fall asleep at the drop of a hat if I'm in a hospital and I hear the beeping of the machines and everything. I'm just used to it. So that wasn't something we had to struggle with when she was inpatient after her initial diagnosis. It was the other human reactions, right, that come with it. But yeah, we always talk about that. It was meant to be.
100%. I mean, like I said, just hearing your story, it's just like things were placed right where they needed to be. And I think the fact that you handled it the way that you did your whole life, like all the different things, the fact that you were in this place of, well, it is what it is. What can I do about it?
Mhm.
I think that is what kept you on your path. It just kept, things were just, they're supposed to be for them, for it just, that's one, I mean, I love backstories because a lot of the times you can see that like thread, that magical thread that people
Yeah.
end up following, but they don't always see it. Sometimes it takes them a while to find the thread.
Oh
And
yeah.
it just sounds like you had this innate ability to just kind of lean into that for yourself without knowing it, just really being true to yourself without realizing that that's kind of that it was being weaved in there. I would love to ask, so working with parents or caregivers or even like the patients themselves who are having to learn what prosilience is and how having to really essentially fight for their lives, but doing it in a way that's healthier for like healthier mindset and everything else.
Right.
How do you teach them this idea of prosilience, especially when it's not something that comes naturally to them?
Sure. Well, what's super interesting about resilience and prosilience is that we're all born with resilience. It's not something that we have or we don't have. It might be something that's easier to access for some than others. So I always just start with that idea. This is about being able to have a capacity to maintain your core purpose and integrity in the face of dramatically changing circumstances. Like some people like to talk about how it lets us bounce back. But my thought on that and why I go more toward prosilience and the proactive piece is like when you fall, you're already out of energy. You don't have energy to pick yourself back up. What if we can build our energy proactively so that we don't fall or we don't fall so far? Like, let's talk about how do we minimize negative outcomes? How do we stay or get back on track when challenges come our way? And in my case, how can we grow stronger from those challenges? And so, I introduced that idea of resilience. And a lot of times when I'm working with patients or caregivers, we need to work on their baseline resilience before we talk about building the sustainable piece for the proactive part of the resilience. And so I introduced the 4 building blocks of resilience, and we talk through that and come up with an action plan to help build the parts of those building blocks that they may feel aren't supporting them in the way that they'd like them to. And from there, then you can actually come up with like a workout plan. Once your baseline resilience is back and supporting you, then you can come up with a plan of how you can stretch and grow so that when the next challenge comes, because we're human, it's life, we weren't guaranteed an easy go at this, so that you can meet it in a different way.
I really love that. I love that for a lot of reasons. One, I think this idea of when you fall, you bounce back. First of all, not everyone can do that. Second of all, I want to say the majority of people can't do that. It's a few that have that, that capability. But also it's this idea that and when society says you bounce back, but when most people don't, then there's this shame that comes with it. Like, why am I not handling this better?
Right.
Why am I not bouncing back and suddenly back to my life like I should be? Right.
I always love saying, let's not should all over ourselves.
Right. I love that. I've heard that too. Yeah. And so I just, it's like you curate it to them and you start with what they're already capable of which is let's make a game plan.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about where we are. We can't change where we are. Let's talk about where we are right now and talk about a game plan to get us to the next step. And not even necessarily bouncing back. Let's just take it one phase at a time is what it feels like, that you're allowing them that way to build at their own pace. And I think that's important, especially with someone that's being diagnosed with something that's so heavy and scary.
Yeah, it's that giving space and grace and allowing a difficult diagnosis to live with you, not you live with it, and do it in a way like, if someone can't do it the way that I do it, that's perfectly fine. Let's find your way. I always invite people like, okay, I'm going to share these concepts. I'm going to share this framework. And if you call BS on it, that's fine. Let's talk about it. You can not agree, but let's find your way. And so it's never like a high and dry, do it this way, or it's not going to work at all. No, definitely like, let's talk about it and let's find your way, because you deserve to enjoy this life that you're living even if there's pain. There's a quote, and I always say the person's name wrong, but that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I almost want to say it was a president that said it.
Yeah, I think it's attributed to a lot of different people. I think even like some people say the Dalai Lama said it. Some say a gentleman named Markumi. Like I said, I'll have to look at that again. But it's just like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, it's not the most fun thing to think about, but yeah.
And I think that's important to coming back to, how if someone doesn't agree with the way you're doing it, or they don't like the way you're, suggesting or else, I think it's so important that you do take the time to talk to them, because I feel like when it comes to healing, especially if you're going to heal yourself through here, right, through your mind, through your mental capacity, you have to have a belief in it. If you don't believe in it, you're not going to it's just not going to happen, or it's going to happen very slowly.
You can't tell people what to do. They're going to automatically rebel against it. It's just human nature.
Right. That too. So it's like, you want to give them a sense of like, one, they are in control. You're just like the guide. You're the guidepost, helping them on their path. And then also like picking something, like helping them pick something that's believable to them.
Right. Yeah. And so you had asked earlier, working specifically with patients and caregivers, what do I first work with them on? Well, there are 4 building blocks of Prosilience, and they are presented in this way. It doesn't mean this is the way they need to happen, but it's 1 is calming yourself. 2 is choosing a strategy to meet the challenge. 3 is solving a problem using your resilience muscles or your resilience characteristics. There are 7 of them that we all have. And then managing your energy. So managing your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual energy. And what I find with the population that I work with is they're in depletion. And so one of the most important things is to first explore and work on managing your 4 energies, and also the calming yourself. And I don't mean relaxing. I mean self-regulation. I mean bringing yourself into your parasympathetic nervous system so that your body is in rest and digest and willing to think about healing when you're not in that survival mode. But the managing energy piece is really powerful when we talk about how do we manage physical energy, especially when you're dealing with an illness, and also realizing that when you can't fill up your physical energy, it'll be much more difficult to access your mental, emotional, and spiritual energy. They all work together and they're all separate. And yet the physical piece is what we really talk about a lot, as well as the spiritual piece. Like, why are you fighting to survive? That spiritual piece is like that connection with a sense of meaning and purpose and something outside of yourself. And a lot of times that can help people build their physical energy. So I find that is really something to work on first, because our energy is what fuels our resilience. So until we have that baseline kind of filled up, it's difficult to access the other parts of resilience and our resilience muscles and the building blocks.
Yeah, no, that's so true. So as with my readings, that does come up a lot, this idea of making the space for change. And so, I mean, not even just dealing with mental illness, just in general, if you want to make the space to have more energy or do anything like find your purpose, you need to have the space to do that. And so there are cards, like there's one that specifically talks about energy, and like it talks about burning, are you burning the candle at both ends, or are you using what you have and then managing accordingly? And I think first you have to be aware of how much energy you even have, because so many of us going beyond what we actually have to give. And then when you're able to actually, like, I like to use the analogy of some of us are candles, some of us are bonfires, some of us are wildfires, because some of us have endless energy and some of us really don't have that much energy, and that's okay. But being able to acknowledge, okay, how much do I have to give in a day, and how do I manage that throughout the day? And that also comes with boundaries too.
Exactly.
That's a big one, is learning how to say no. And I can imagine for someone who's diagnosed, especially if they were the wildfire before and now they're the candle, like there's acceptance that comes with that too, of like, oh, okay, now I have a lot less energy. And being able to say, I can't do this today, I'm sorry, because I need to take care of me. Or so hard. That's hard for anyone, but I can't imagine with the mental load of also, the diagnosis too.
Right. Well, and it's so interesting. So I hobby in human design and I really enjoy it. And it really helped me the last 4 or 5 years understand my energetic blueprint and what I'm actually like, what I can do. And it's helped me be able to step back and not live in the world as an energizer bunny when I'm not. I'm not built for that. And so to have that permission from this, human design system, personality assessment type thing, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes complete sense on why I can't, quote unquote, keep up with. So not only am I managing my, kidney transplant, I do have less energy anyway from that, but also just the way I'm made to be in the world is different. And so being able to give yourself that grace and space and permission after you have an awareness to like start living it is super important as well.
I love human designs. Okay, so I have to ask. So
Yeah.
if you don't have energy, you're either a projector, a reflector, or a manifester.
Which
I
do
don't
you
know what
think?
you would be. Oh, I would say maybe projector.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
that's why I specifically try to use the words guide and those types of things.
So
You are okay. Yeah.
yeah.
So you get it.
And also like I'm thinking, okay, I don't know as much about manifestors and I don't know as much about reflectors, but I know that there are less of them and there's some
Yes.
projectors. So I'm like, I'm gonna go with the one that's more.
Yeah, I've met in my work so far, I've because I do human design readings, really as a hobby and for fun. But I have met one reflector in the 30 or so people I've read, and I live with a manifester and a manifesting generator. And so it's interesting to see the differences in how we show up and how we operate in the world. But yeah, no, it's like I said, it was like that permission slip even more. I already had the permission slip from life coach training of being able to spend time and slow down and be in awareness and have different perspectives on how to look at the world. And then I got into it to try to find an energetically aligned way to market my coaching business because I didn't want to do it the generator way. And people who know human design will know probably what that means. But so that's how I got into it. And then I just went down the rabbit hole and it became a lovely hobby that's really supported me in growth and actually stepping out from the company that I contracted with for years as a life coach to then really focus in on my purpose. And when I look at my chart, I was like, oh my gosh, like my conscious sun is to serve joy and to correct those things that have been spoiled. So those thoughts of like, well, I'm sick, I can't live my life. Well, that's why you're exactly supposed to live your life because life is precious. And let's live it that way while we're here on earth.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's one of the things that I loved about my learning about human design too. I haven't done like a full-blown deep dive in my chart yet.
Mhm.
I've had like little inklings here and there, like I
Sure.
had some podcast. Part of it was during our podcast, she read a little bit of my chart. So that was cool.
Super
And
cool.
who's a reflector, actually. She's like the only reflector I know, but she's incredible. She recently read a little bit into my chart. So like I haven't done a whole deep dive, which I want to do, but I will say what I have learned has been so helpful. And it's just made me realize like, oh my God, that's why I am the way that I am. And that's why tarot works so well for me. Because when I do these readings, I get into this guide role and my I don't know how to say it, the cross of tension or the
So your incarnation crosses the cross of tension. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't even know how to say it. Yeah. So that one talks about provoking people. And at first I was, oh, I don't like that. But then I realized like, oh wait, no, it's not a bad thing. It just means I help them see things that they couldn't see before.
When you read into, when you talk about the, provocation and that sort of thing, it isn't to, like you were mentioning before, you don't put people into shame or blame or anything. It's just like bringing awareness to and allowing for growth in that realm. And if you didn't provoke them by showing, there's no way they'd have awareness.
Exactly. My only problem I struggle with as a projector is I'm a single parent, so I'm
Mhm.
still in that hustler, generator type world because I kind
Yeah.
of have to be. And then I think there's something in my chart that actually does say, even though I'm a projector, I have like something like a little boost of energy. So I've
Oh,
got,
sure. I bet you have a motor center. Like I have a motor center just defined. I have my root center defined. And so I have a little more energy
yeah,
than like my mom asked me to read her chart. So she's a projector with no motor centers. And so no, I mean, mom, that's why you need naps after you're out with generators all day. I'm like, I love naps. They're good for us.
100%. Yeah.
It's time to take a short break from our wonderful speaker. Are you in the need of guidance around love, career, family, life, or purpose? Embark on a spiritual journey inward with an intuitive tarot reading. Depending on what you're needing and looking for, I offer private one-on-one sessions as well as personalized email readings. It doesn't matter what the question is. A reading with me provides connection with your higher self, offering curated personal messages, or what I like to refer to as spiritual roadmaps, guiding you to the future outcome you desire. Readings are insightful and affordable. If you'd like more information or to schedule a reading with me, please see the link below.
So moving back to,
I'm sorry.
no, you're totally fine. I was the one that I detoured there. I just love human design. So it's once we're talking about it, I'm like, let's chat. But yeah, so what is one major struggle that you see with those that you work with, like a common struggle, and what's an advice you'd give for that struggle?
Sure. So I recently just wrapped up a 4-week workshop for caregivers, parents of children with brain tumors, and there definitely is depletion. And so the first thing I invited them to do was take a look at their energy, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Where might you be depleted? Where might you be able to build yourself up? Because then from there, we took a look at their caregiver superpower, which really focuses on which resilience muscles and characteristics do you have ease of access to in a challenge, and which ones would you like to have more access to. But again, energy fuels resilience. So unless we have that energy built up and ready for us to access, it's difficult to access our different resilience muscles with ease without like draining our energy. And that's one of the things that I'm very passionate about, because everything is energy. So I want people to have enough energy so that they don't feel drained all of the time, because you can't really do much when you feel drained. So the other thing, which is always difficult to talk about, is that feeling of guilt that caregivers may have. And so asking them to give themselves space and grace. And I like to invite them to change some of that guilt or worry into wonder. Meaning, like, if you're worrying about things that are going to happen in the future, but you don't know that it's actually going to happen, can we instead wonder about that? The guilt piece as a parent and a caregiver is super hard. I think even being a parent to a child without, a devastating diagnosis is difficult. But it's that question that you brought up earlier of the unfairness and of the why me and why my child. And my husband said something to me once right after my daughter's diagnosis. And again, we live like basically across the street from the children's hospital, and we drive by there all the time to get to the freeway. And I've not been a person to ask why me a lot, but I get there because I'm a human. And we were talking about it one day, and he's like, yeah, whenever that comes up for me, I then ask, why not me? And not from a place of like being negative or expecting the worst or being foreboding, but more like the place of things can happen to anyone. And so being able to see it that way and not put blame on oneself for an illness that wasn't lifestyle related, wasn't something that you kind of perpetuated or brought on, why ask why me? Does it bring you any answers?
Yeah, it really comes back to when you ask why me, it puts you in a powerless position of being out of control. But when you're able, I like that when you're able to say why not me, you're basically saying if it's happening, it's happening, and like you said, it can happen to anyone. So it doesn't really, it's not helpful to stay in that space. So
And like everyone should be able to be in that space if they need to, but it's when you stay in it, when you stay in the muck, that it can become a problem and just drain all of your energy. And
yeah,
then you're no good to yourself. You're no good to your, person that you're caregiving for. I truly, truly believe, and I say this with an understanding of my place of privilege, right? I have a roof over my head. I generally have my health right now. I am a white woman in a suburb, right? But like you get to choose how you respond to the challenges in life. And I just don't find asking why me and this is unfair, it doesn't move me anywhere. And I also allow people to be where they are.
yeah. So I mean, with what you just said, with the choice, this is something I learned when I was young. I got really lucky and went to this seminar. My sister got kind of sent to like a bad kid school. She had a little rough, and so part of this school was they offered the seminar for the families. And so I was like not even 21, or I was barely 21. And I went to the seminar where I learned about accountability. And I think that was probably one of the best things I could have learned. I mean, it took me a long time to really figure out what that meant because, I was still young and whatever, but it was in the back of my head. And one of the things I've learned over the years, and I really, really just fully believe in, is we still have choice. No matter what situation we're in, I don't remember the name. I need to remember the name of this book and the man who wrote it. But there's this man who was in the Holocaust. And he was
yes, Viktor Frankl.
Okay, Viktor Frankl.
What was it? Man's Search for Meaning or Say Yes to Life?
I'm not sure. I've heard it
probably the first one. Yeah.
Just from what I understand, it's that he found his joy even in the camp, and found something to be happy or grateful for in that moment where he, in the most direst of circumstances, that was a choice that he still had, that every one of them still had, and so, but that's just the direst of circumstances. And every day have so many more choices than we even realize. And so I've always liked to equate choice to freedom.
Yeah.
Because,
well, and like you said, the accountability piece, and the company that I used to contract with called Thrive, a human development company, we taught love and personal responsibility are a package deal. And when we talk about love, it was love for ourselves and others in the world. So more of that agape love, the Greek love of, what I'm talking about. And then personal responsibility. And like, if you don't pair those together, you can have underuse and overuse of both of them. But if you're able to pair them together, you have a better balance in which to meet the world and say, okay, yes, this really hard thing is happening to me. And I am going to choose my perspective. I'm going to choose my next right action. And I'm going to give myself grace as I'm doing that. And again, I have time to contemplate these types of things because of my position and situation, and others may not. But I do believe that we all are going to be enveloped in these types of feelings and thoughts and ideas when we're no longer earthbound.
100%. I think I've heard this many times and it resonates with me. Earth is like one of the most hardest places to be because it's 3D and all the things that we deal with. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep.
But I like how you do point out your place of privilege in this. I'm really glad you mentioned that. But I also don't want to take away from those that may not be in that position, who they still have.
You still have the power. Oh my gosh. Right.
But it is, I can see how it was easier for you because you were your environment was a little more malleable in that,
Mhm.
but anyone has that choice. And I also like how you mentioned, that there's a time and place to feel your feelings for sure. Like whenever I get that justice card and I say that, you're dealing with these big feelings of injustice and unfairness, I always stop and say, and this card, spirit wants to validate you in those feelings. Like you are allowed to feel that way. Those are your feelings to have, but you don't want to stay there. That's, you don't want to live there. It's okay to, so, and not only that, but it's going to come in waves. You might be a resilient person and you might be doing great. And then it's going to hit you one day, one random Tuesday. And you have to just, okay, we're feeling it today.
Hello feeling, goodbye
Yeah.
feeling. Yeah.
Exactly. I like to, it's the analogy of like the ocean tides, it's like sometimes it comes in, you just gotta take it while it's there and then like let it go when it's time to go.
So this is going back to human design, but what is your authority, your decision-making center to?
Emotional, I think.
Yeah. So I thought maybe because you just described there are 3 actual types of the emotional wave that goes along with emotional authority. And so, yeah, that felt right for you.
So to be completely honest, like when it comes to big feelings, like I will say when it comes to like getting big feelings, that is how I handle those feelings is, really feel into it. And it's like, and I've learned like, okay, I'm in it. This day's going to be a little hard. I'm just going to have to like be gentle with myself. And because tomorrow I'll feel better. Like I've learned that about myself. If it comes, I have to just write it out and then it'll be better. When it comes to decisions though, like I've had different human design people tell me like, oh, well, when you have to think about it before you say yes. I have such a hard time with that. That I'm like, but if I want to do it and it feels good, I don't want to wait a whole day to know for sure I want to say yes to it, especially in business.
I usually liken it to trying not to make big life decisions when you're riding the wave.
That makes sense. Oh my gosh, you just totally made that whole thing make way more sense.
Yeah, so wait till you're more at an emotional center or balanced before you make a decision. And it's interesting because there is you can always have a second tier authority as well. So it'd be interesting to see what your second tier might be.
I would definitely be curious to that because I even looked up through human design. I like looked up my emotional, like how I deal with big emotions or whatever. I don't remember where I found it, but the little graph made so much sense to me. It was like these little dashes in time.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm really even keel until it's just this is the day I'm gonna feel
build,
and
bam, and then fizzle out.
Yeah, but it's like most of the time I'm even keel. It's just it's dashes that I get like these big
emotions. So that means that you have a specific channel activated because there are the 3 different channels for the 3 different emotional waves. And if one's activated, then that's the one that you most normally feel around that. But
anyway. It makes okay. Well, next, thank you. You just that was like the one thing with human design. That one doesn't make sense. And that one you just was like, okay, but if I'm riding that wave, yeah, I don't want to make any big decisions. That 100%.
Awesome.
But yeah, so that's and all the advice you gave is, and going over the struggles. I'm sure whether someone's dealing with diagnosed, if someone's a caregiver or they're dealing with this diagnosis for themselves, like all of those things resonate. But I think a lot of what you shared also resonates with most people too, who are just living day-to-day life. So either way, great advice for all of those things on how to deal with it, to move forward through it. What is one lesson that you've learned throughout your life? And I know that you've been through a lot between you and your daughter. Now many clients. What is one lesson that you've learned that you feel like it would be really beneficial for other people to learn as well?
There are so many, but I'm going to go with don't wait till things are all better to live better. Don't say, I'm going to blank when I'm less stressed. I'm going to feel better when I have that promotion. I'm, find the essence of what you're looking for and find a way to bring that to yourself now, if that makes sense. So does that make sense to you?
That makes perfect sense to me. And I absolutely love that. It's actually how I read the Lover's card. It's all, you're already whole. Whatever that thing's going to give you, you can already do now, which is such a hard concept because we think our happiness is outside and it's not.
Well, and people will say to me like, oh, I'm so broken inside, something so, and I say, no, you aren't. And it's really hard for people to hear that, because I think for some that brings some sort of comfort. And so I don't want to take that away from them. But in those moments, I'll say, all right, so I'm going to hold that for you, that you're complete and whole exactly as you are until you're ready to feel that. Because for some people, like the broken piece makes them want to strive to do things or to be better or do more, when in actuality, we're all enough simply being here on earth. And that's one message that I like to share, and I'll hold it for people if they don't believe it and they don't like, that's one where I'm like, yeah, you can discern that, we'll find yours. And I have a knowing that everyone is whole. And part of my human design is seeing the healing power and wholeness in all things. That's one of my gates. So I was like, that's why I see things that way, because I've been saying that for years and years and years. I just want people to see the possibility and how beautiful of a human they are, even in their challenges.
I love that. Like 100% on so many levels. And I mean, I like how you give them the space, because it's not going to matter what you say to them. If they feel broken, they feel broken. And so you are arguing that fact isn't going to be helpful, but telling them that's okay. You can feel that way, but I know you're more than that. And when you're ready to believe that and see that, I'm not going to stop believing that, like I'm going to be your anchor for that. But it came to me when you were talking about that. Have you heard of it's a Japanese culture?
Yes.
It's called, where they break the vase and they put it back to gold.
Right.
I like to use that analogy a lot for that particular thing, because like there's this one card, I speak in tarot a lot.
No, that's cool. I like that.
One card called the Five of Swords.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Five of Swords, you feel like things are so messed up, they will never be okay again. Like that's the perception, that's the lens you're looking at. If it's not reality, but that's your reality, that's how you're seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole thing about the Five of Swords is that you will overcome it. You will get over it. You will get there. You just have to shift your perception to know it's possible, right? Mm-hmm. And so I like to use the analogy of it is basically right now it feels like someone took you as a vase and they smashed you into the ground, or the situation. You feel like everything about you or the situation is just in pieces. Mm-hmm. But I like to come back to that, the Japanese culture is, but still put that back together.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be more beautiful because you're gonna have gold in there.
It's so funny. Do you see the shirt that I'm wearing?
Oh,
Camp is gold.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm wearing the gold shirt. It's a camp. It's run by Children's Oncology Services here in the Midwest, and it's called Camp One Step. And their mission is to help kids with cancer, those who are in treatment, who are out of treatment, and even their siblings and their families, to just be kids. And so that's what that means to me with like that gold, is like these kids' lives have been changed. They've been shattered, and camp helps put it all back together in a way that only this camp can.
That's amazing. That's truly amazing. I've been so fortunate talking to you, and I've had a couple other people I've interviewed on my podcast who, specifically work with those dealing with these life-altering situations. Mm-hmm. And then guiding them back to wellness, however that needs to be for them. And, mm-hmm. It's so beautiful to know that those resources are out there for everyone who's struggling with it. So from here, I would love to shift to what I like to call synchronicity story time.
Okay.
And, I'm such a big believer that the universe, God, divine is always watching out for us and is always giving us little signs that you can't deny. You look at it and you're like, how did this line up the way it did? It didn't just happen by accident. Do you have any fun synchronistic stories like that you could share?
Oh yeah. How much time do you have? I'm kidding. I'll give two.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll give two. These both center around the time when I was at my lowest, at my daughter's diagnosis. The first one was, trying to keep it all together, and not trying, like I'm pretty good at it. Like okay, this is what is. The next step is to find the treatment and all of that. I think it was like 2 days into her week admission. She had already had one brain surgery. We had, care team members going in and out of the building, not the building, the room. We had family in the room. And all of a sudden, I just felt everything starting to go like this inside of me. And I hadn't felt that yet. And I was going to lose it. And that's perfectly fine and human. But all of a sudden, this like calm came over me. Everything was calm and quiet around me. And a voice outside of myself said, who do you want to be for her? And I realized I don't want to be a place of fear and anxiousness and the sterility and cold of the hospital room. I want to be love and caring and warmth and humor and home. And so that question that came to me from outside of myself, it's guided my journey the past 8 years.
Wow, that's so powerful. I love that. And I love, because I've experienced similar things where it's like, whether it was your higher self or higher power, it was just, you're like, that didn't come from my brain.
You could not deny it.
And I love that. It saw that you needed that in the moment. I mean, obviously you still needed to process your feelings, and that was going to come up, but in that moment, you had two decisions, right?
And when I was going through personal resilience training, and I shared that story and talking about resilience muscles, their positivity, confidence, priorities, creativity, connection, structure, and experimenting, the instructor was like, what a moment of your priority resilience muscle being activated. Like, I never thought of it that way. But yes, because it helped direct me back to what's important. It helped direct me back to that something outside of myself and connecting to meaning and purpose in the moment. So it was the spiritual energy management as well as that priorities, resilience muscle being activated that helped me then move through the rest of that challenge.
Yeah, it grounded you.
Mm-hmm.
It grounded.
And then the second story, if I could share it, because I love this one. It was late at night that same week, and my daughter was asleep in her bed, and the night nurse was coming in and out. And I think my husband was watching TV or was asleep or something. And I happened to look across the floor, and I saw this puddle. It wasn't near anything. It wasn't near the sink. It wasn't near her IV pole, but there was this little puddle. And so I got up to go wipe it up because, and it was in the shape of a heart. And I looked around and like, where did this come from? And the nurse happened to come in, and I said, do you see that? She's like, yeah. So I have a picture of that, and I share it with my daughter every once in a while. And she now has a whole album on her iPhone of hearts that she sees out in the world. Is it a drop of oil from the car? Is it a leaf that's in the shape of a heart? And so that's just one of our signs and reminders that, as soon as I saw that heart on the floor, I'm like, yeah, we're in the right place and we're doing the right thing. And so try to instill that in us as we see those things day to day.
Oh my God, I love that. And you can see her in so many different things. But I know this one lady who I used to go to this group called Toastmasters. Like, okay, yeah, it was like speech group. And this one woman I just adore her. And she lost her daughter. Her daughter was, grown up and had kids, but she got cancer and she passed away. And then not only that, but then also, well, let me backtrack. So her daughter passed away and, devastating all this stuff. And she started seeing hearts. So now every single day she looks for hearts because she knows it's her daughter. But then the same woman got cancer herself. Mm. And I mean, she was able to beat this cancer, but when she shaved her head, there was a heart back there too. I mean, so it was just, hearts were their thing, and it still is. If you see her throughout the day, if she sees a heart or you see a heart and you point it out to her, like she's going to be seeing a heart that day for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's even one, I have a picture of when my daughter was, maybe it was 2 years ago. She was wearing this dark purple t-shirt and had just, taken a shower or whatnot. And so her hair was wet. And then she swept her hair to the side, and the wet mark on her back goes the shape of a heart. You can't make this stuff up.
No. And when you know it's your thing, you see it everywhere.
What we
And
focus on expands.
yeah, totally. Um, Not the same thing, but well, I think it shows up differently. Like that's like your guys' anchor. So that's what I don't feel like I have one of those yet. I need one of those. But but I see a lot of angel numbers. And
Oh,
there
yeah.
was a point in time fairly recently where I was seeing 222 everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, like my change, 222, $2.22. Or I when my day job when I'm not doing my business or podcasting, I do DoorDash. So I do delivery.
Yeah.
Delivery apartment 222. I mean,
Oh,
like
wow.
really license plates. I mean, everywhere. And I was like, what is the deal with
Well,
222?
is that your thing? Are you overlooking your thing?
I don't know. Well, I don't think that was like my anchor. I think it was in hindsight. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I still see it. And now when I
So
see it,
funny.
like it's telling me balance. I feel like that's
Mm.
what it's like then I was in a new relationship. I was trying to figure out my business and, being a mom. And like, I was doing a bunch of different things at once. And so I feel like after I did some research, I'm like, I think it's telling me I need more balance,
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, that's kind of what I take from it. But like, I don't have like the heart, or I hear people say like, I see feathers or I see pennies, and that's
Right.
just how they know. I'm like, I need one of those.
Can I make 2 suggestions?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
first, I'm going to invite you because language has power, right?
Mhm.
Instead of saying I need, can you say I want, I desire? It might be more accessible then to you.
That. Okay. I'm writing this down.
Oh, and then the other one I forgot. Oh, the other is the idea of form and essence. So you're specifically saying you want a thing that's like the pennies from heaven or the feather or your heart. But the essence of those things is what? What do those things say to you? They're a grounding. What is it that you're hoping that will bring? And then find yours. Like it'll just come.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Like, and just see what the patterns are, like what I'm seeing multiple times. Or
Yeah.
for a while, I thought it was hawks. So maybe like, oh, not, I thought it was a couple of years ago, but I would see hawks every day, like several, like
Yeah.
3 or 4.
And
But
maybe
yeah.
it changes based on what
Oh,
your soul spirit's seeking at that time.
I didn't even think about that either. I love that. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Perspective is everything, right?
It is. It really is. Awareness and perspective, man, it can change your life.
So, the final question I'd love to ask you that I ask everyone, do you feel like we all have a purpose here?
Yeah, I do. Everything is so interrelated, and why else would something, creation, the divine, come up with this massive experiment of humans and other living things on Earth? Like, and I don't think our human minds can comprehend. I think if someone was able to find that out while we were, you were still a human, it might like be too much. And so I think it's great to find a purpose. It doesn't need to be something that's like setting your hair on fire and like consuming you. And I think it can change as well. But yeah, I don't know. Why else are we here? And again, a person's purpose doesn't need to be connected to their way of making money or a career or anything like that. But like, what brings you joy? What makes you light up? And is that your purpose?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I've heard different answers on this question, which has been
I'm
fascinating.
sure.
I want to say that the general consensus is yes. But I also love, and you're not the first one to mention this, the idea that it doesn't have to be this grandiose thing.
Mhm.
It could be living life and being in the moment. It could be holding the door open for someone who you don't know what kind of day they had, but that one act of kindness was exactly what they needed in that moment.
Yeah.
And then I do think even when we do find like the thing that lights us up, it doesn't mean it's going to be our career. It could be a hobby.
Mhm.
You could need money, right? But throw yourself into something that you absolutely love that's in service of others,
Mhm.
and not the compensation, but you're getting lit up and you're helping others. It is a form of transactional energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, and it's filling your spiritual energy.
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that's connected outside of you and it's part of a meaning that's bigger than you. And that will help you face life and enjoy life more easily when you have those energies filled.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, if like, so you don't, it doesn't have to be career, but I think a lot of us, because a lot of us do, we are humans and we have to pay for things and
Yeah.
like we don't have a choice in that. I think that aspect, that's why a lot of it does become career, because it's like, if we're going to be spending our time doing something where we're going to be making money, you might as well do what you love.
Oh, yeah. And, you've seen that trend happen more and more since 2020. People are questioning more, how am I spending my time? How am I spending my energy? Is there a way I can do this that's not depleting? And some people are completely happy keeping that separate from their way of bringing in, money to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to get more and more that way as we get closer to my husband's like, what are you talking about? Like, when the veil lifts more, when we're able to see more, you know what I'm talking about. When we're able to see more than what's here in front of us, and maybe not see, but sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny because like, when you think about the astrology aspect of 2020, I don't know how much you're into astrology, but did you hear about how we went from the age of the Capricorn to the age of the Aquarius?
Yeah.
The Capricorns were very structured. They like things the way that they were, which is what we're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's more Aquarian, flowing and being outside of the box thinking. We're in that energy now. And you're seeing, I think, I don't know if you heard of this, but I heard that the US, and I think other countries too, are going through what they call the Great Resignation.
Oh, yeah.
And they're doing their own thing. That's so Aquarian compared to Capricorn.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's funny then that my husband was like, what do you mean the veil's lifted? And he's an Aquarius.
Oh.
But, that's fine.
That is funny. But Aquarius, they're thinkers. So
yes. Oh, yes. But no, I do. And actually, if we go and look at human design, there's a thought that in 2027, there's going to be a change in the way that the leaders in the world and the way that things are happening. It would be more, right now, we're kind of in the generator world, right? And it's actually turning more toward projectors as the leaders. So coming from a place of wisdom and guidance and energetics and those types of things. So I'm really excited for that because, I think we've been waiting our turn for being able to lead with energy and energetics and those things versus productivity and efficiency.
I hope that happens, because the thing is, the thing that projectors can bring to the table is this idea that we're all doing what we're just supposed to be doing. We're all doing our superpower. We're all doing our gifts. And if everyone can just be in their gifts, then there's no, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. It's, you're doing what feels good to you. I'm doing what feels good to me. And now we're all coexisting. It's great.
Yeah. Coexist.
Yeah. Generators, there's this idea because it's their world right now. So pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you make it happen and you hustle and you work hard.
That's been needed, right? I mean, that's been needed, and humans evolve over time. And so maybe now is the next evolution of how, humans are here to use energy.
Yeah. Because I'd love that, because this idea of self-care is more out there. This idea of like not working yourself to the ground, because what are you doing it for? You're not enjoying it. Right. Yeah. Oh, I hope that comes to pass for sure. So for those that, who are listening, who want to work with you, now, do you also work remotely as well?
I mainly work remotely, which was very helpful being immunosuppressed and during when COVID was at its height, because I was able to still work and help guide people and help them find their joy and grounding during that time. But yeah, I do work remotely.
For those who want to work with you and they're really inspired by your story and they're a caregiver, or maybe they're the ones being diagnosed, how can they find you?
Sure. Well, there's a website, prosilienccoach.com. So PROSILIENCE coach.com. I'm also on LinkedIn at Jenn Fredericks. I am on Instagram at JFredWI, and then also on Facebook, Jenn Fredericks, Prosilience Coach. So that's where they can find me. Just reach out and let's see if we're a great fit and how I might be able to support and guide you in this journey.
Perfect. And I'll be putting all that in the show notes so she's easy to find if you want to work with her. Yeah, this has been such a great conversation on all fronts. I mean, hearing your story again in person, not in person, but, like live. And it was just, again, super incredible. And all of our little tangents were fun and I think informative for those that are following and listening. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for holding the space for people to share their stories and to help others along their journey here on Earth too.
Thank you for joining me on another inspiring episode. Remember, your purpose is a unique and unfolding path. I hope these conversations have ignited a spark within you. Until next time, keep exploring, growing, and embracing the beautiful adventure of connecting with your purpose. Stay tuned for more meaningful conversations. If you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me on this journey.